You have a constraint. There is in any chain a weak link in that chain. And the idea is that, if you don't know what that is and you spend time strengthening other parts of the chain, in essence, the overall chain isn't any stronger because the weakest link in the chain is still weak.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. Now, friends, if you have listened to yesterday's episode, it was about the backstory of me going out and having way too many beers in the first quarter of 2011 with the co-founder of the Countertop Factory Midwest, Mr. Bill Heuer. In absentia was Mr. Geoff Gran, and I share the paper that I wrote during my MBA program, which was a long, apparently somewhat drunken interview with these guys, but they shared a bunch of insights on their own background, starting and running their own business, and helping me not only get a grade, which I do not know exactly what I got here. Had to be pretty good. It's held up pretty well over the years, if I'm not being too modest. And it also gave me a lot of insight and confidence as I was preparing just less than 6 months later to quit the only company that I had ever worked for and start my own business. So fast forward to today, this conversation takes place in real time here in 2024 on a recent visit to Chicago. I got a tour and we had a wonderful conversation with Mr. Bill Heuer. Geoff Gran was traveling. He wasn't able to be there. And Bill shared a whole new series of insights on innovation and delivering unique value and how his firm has continued to grow. They've invested in other companies. They've started other companies that are related to countertops and cabinetry in the construction space. They've expanded to Arizona. And for all the folks out there who may be thinking that it's impossible or extremely difficult to make money by working with folks like Home Depot or the big national production residential home builders or the big commercial construction companies, they just squeeze you and beat you down. This conversation is how it can be done. And yes, you have to think differently. And yes, you have to be disciplined. And yes, you have to have a passion and enthusiasm for the details and the operational aspects of the business. But this is what these guys do. So if you did not miss yesterday's episode, I think you'd enjoy going back to it, but it's not necessary. Here's a quick overview on Mr. Bill Heuer. He attended Georgetown University, very bright guy. He then started working for Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati and was rising up and was on the trajectory to become a CMO, a chief marketing officer, somewhere when he reconnected with his childhood friend, Mr. Geoff Gran, who had recently sold his own medical supply business, and they were looking for a new opportunity. Bill Heuer's brother-in-law had recently started, again, this is going back in the early 2000s, had started a countertop manufacturing and install company in Charlotte, North Carolina. They were hearing stories about how well it was going. They went there to visit to check it out and said, all right. They made their own little playbook. They came back to the Chicagoland area, started it up, and that is where I, first on the production side, I was a project manager at a Del Webb active adult community that almost killed me. I worked with them on the construction side, and then I went into purchasing where among the things that I was responsible for were countertops. So I got to work with them again, got to know them really well. And as you'll hear, really value our friendship, really am impressed with their business acumen and the way they continue to deliver unique value and grow their business and have fun doing it. So please enjoy my conversation with Mr. Bill Heuer, co-founder, co-owner of the Countertop Factory. As always, thank you for listening. Mr. Bill Heuer, welcome to the show.
BH, it's great to be here. First time, long time. Honored to be on the program.
Well, this has been a unique experience, and it started when I was kind of cleaning out my office at the end of the last year, and I came across this paper. Now, this aired yesterday, so people already know a little bit about you. They know our relationship, and this is just amazing because you were extremely generous with your time then as I was preparing to launch my company, and here we are 13 years later. You've grown and expanded your business across the country in multiple different ways that we'll kind of talk to. But I just want to say thank you because you were very generous with your time today, and just seeing how much you've grown and your insights that you shared with me really helped me and continue to help me. So I want to say thanks for making time for all this.
I appreciate that, buddy. I always have time for you, and I will take full credit for all of your success. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. It means a lot.
All right, man. I want to throw you back in time.
Uh-oh.
There's a scene that plays out in my mind when I think about Grand Dominion.
Uh-oh.
It was in Neighborhood 2. We were in a situation with a incredible amount of demand and sales, and we were all excited. We sold all those homes. It was like the one community that wasn't crashing when the rest of the world was. So the Great Recession had started. We didn't really know it. We were building so fast out there en route to, I think, almost like 346 homes in less than 6 months. Yep. I had come out of a house. It was probably 6 o'clock at night, and I just got to the end of the driveway. There might not have been roads. We were building without roads. And I just remember looking up, and we're about 4, 5, 6 houses away. You had done like the exact same thing. And our eyes met, and both of us, my sense of it was, both of us were like, what are we doing here? And it was the first time in my career, Bill, that I ever thought, from a construction standpoint, this is too big for me. There's not a way to unscrew this pooch.
Yes.
Like, we were in for a long haul, and this was just beginning. Maybe take the audience back to that, because I think it'll give an idea of how quickly you guys were able to scale your business. What do you remember from that time period?
I remember several things. That was, at the time, as you said, Pulte's kind of crown jewel project in the area, selling like hotcakes. And from our standpoint, the largest project that we had worked with Pulte on, one of the largest projects Pulte had, but for us internally, the largest project we had done with Pulte. And so we had a lot on the line just as a vendor, right? If we were going to be part of this crown jewel project and fail, regardless of the pressure we were under or the pace that the project was going, we had a lot to lose from a long-term relationship with Pulte. So I remember that project in many ways shaving years off my life, frankly, from a times feeling, to your point, feeling like this is a mountain that we just cannot climb, right? And this is just something that is bigger than we could handle as a company. But like everything, right? Every crisis, if you want to put it in that quotations there, like every crisis, you really find out like who you are, who your company is, and what you can really accomplish, right? And so I remember Geoff and I sitting here in our office just thinking, how are we going to do this? How are we going to attack this? Because in any situation like that, the first thing is, we have a saying internally, you can't boil the ocean, right? You can't do everything at once, right? So how do we think about this in bite-sized chunks? Like, how do we take this thing down in bite-sized chunks? And it was, all right, we got to find a way to increase our productivity. We've got to get more things done in the shop because they're not selling down out there. They're not going to sell less houses, and nobody wants that, right? So we've either got to kind of raise our level, right, and get that productivity up to the point where they need it, or they're going to find somebody else. And that point was made clear by a mutual friend of ours, Mike Hausler, who I think in retrospect told me when we actually completed that project successfully that he never thought we'd get it done, but we kind of came back from against the odds, or rather, and got it back. And so I think it was just, like I said, it was just really kind of digging deep, sitting down with a cool head, with a calm approach, and saying, all right, let's think about this really step by step. What do we have to do? And let's go attack those things step by step. And that helped kind of overcome that feeling of overwhelming, kind of an overwhelming mountain ahead of us. Mm-hmm. I think we moved from there.
So at that point, let's say, what was that? Was that 2007, mm-hmm. Bill? Mm-hmm. Okay. How many years were you guys in business at that point?
About 2.
Okay.
So we were new, right? We had just, we had started with Pulte in the year before that. I think at 05, 06, we started with Pulte. Late 05, early 06, we started with Pulte. Not long after we started. So just a quick backstory on that. I know you're a big fan of the concept of you're owed nothing, deliver value first, right?
Indeed.
I'm as I said, a longtime listener to the podcast. So our first approach with Pulte was really kind of going in and trying to figure out how we could deliver that value. What could we do that would separate us from all the other guys in the market, right? We were young, we were new to the market. And so, that approach was, all right, we're going to go find a way to kind of change the model a bit, right? So, guys at that point were delivering countertops in 10 to 12 days, maybe longer, right? And our approach to Pulte was, hey, we can do that in 4 to 5 days, right? We can help take days out of your schedule. What value are we bringing to you? Well, we're bringing to you, 3, 4, 5 days of value of shortening that time schedule, right? So that was kind of our approach going in, which got us that first opportunity. Quick funny story is I remember the first day I went in to meet with Geoff Heuer, another longtime friend of ours, still in the industry somewhere, right? And Geoff gave me a project which he quote unquote said was being bid out right now. Now I'd done a little bit of research and I knew that Geoff was kind of not being completely candid with me, and that was a project that they were already building, but he was trying to obviously test me. And so I took that project, I went home that night and I stayed up all night and came back the next morning and had it done, had it quoted for him. And in that presentation the next morning, I came in with my hot cup of coffee because I'm a big coffee drinker, my venti Starbucks, black coffee. And in the middle of my, theatrics and all the great things I'm talking about and selling our company, I proceed to knock the hot cup of coffee right onto my lap in the middle of the presentation. But I'm rolling at this point, BH. And so I can't stop. So I'm just going through and talking about with verve and
so wait, there's a little bit of lore for maybe a few years about you and this. Do you literally knock this onto your pants and you do not skip a beat? You act like nothing happened?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. I mean, I think there was probably a moment of like, oh, that is really uncomfortable. But yeah, it was locked in at that point. I was definitely locked in. And then until those guys were like, I think Lear and these guys were like, wait, you just knocked hot coffee onto yourself. Like, let's just take a second here. I'm like, all right, let's just take a second. But yeah, that was my go-to on that. So anyway, so we'd been in business 2 years before that with Pulte. Our mantra inside our company, which came from some previous experience with P&G, is the customer is boss, right? And for us, that is not the same thing as the customer is always right, because we know in any industry that's not always the case. But the customer is boss for us means that everything we're doing, every aspect of our company is focused on delivering for that customer, right? And so with that approach in mind, when we had the opportunity with Pulte, we put that into practice. And so we were, Johnny on the spot. We were delivering in the 4 to 5 days that we talked about. We had an incident where a subdivision that we weren't even working on, a superintendent called us and said, hey, I need a backsplash because I'm closing later today. And the other guy who services this subdivision can't do it. So we were like, absolutely. So we did things like that went above and beyond, which is just, again, kind of part of our core culture of what we do. And that earned us this opportunity at Grand Dominion. So it was about 2 years that we had been in business and 1.5 working with Pulte before that Grand Dominion project.
Well, you've adequately answered, I think, part of what made you and Geoff Gran immediately stand out. When I think of the best salespeople I know, and maybe they are in a sales role or they're not. In your case, you own the place, but you had kind of 3 main elements. Is that you were insightful. You could tell you were smart. You were also entertaining. You have a really good sense of humor. You're funny. You're a good hang, right? But you could also back it up and execute. And I was just curious, to what degree can you teach these things? Can you accelerate anyone, regardless of what role they're in? But I'm like, this is what I want to surround myself with and my team with is who are the people that are really smart, fun to be around, entertaining, they're smart, but also, dude, they're getting the job done to spec, and then maybe not all the time, but every now and then going above and beyond with like, oh man, that's awesome. How is that scalable at all within this company or just in general?
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 approaches to that, right? Like you can't create a bunch of mini Bill Heuers running around. I don't think that would be good for the company, right? Because my strengths are my strengths and my weaknesses are my weakness, right? And so you need to have different people working in different roles. And the other part of it, frankly, is you made that point, which is at the end of the day, it's about execution, right? It's about delivering for the customer. And the first two aspects of that are important, right? You need to be insightful. You need to have, to your point, you need to bring value first, right? You need to understand why that customer wants to work with you, why that home builder or commercial GC wants to work with you, right? And that middle part about being someone that can relate to people, I think that is something that you can, it's not going to be done the way I do it, right? Or someone else, or you do it, right? You have a very likable personality most of the time. So you can't really train that, but you can train, I think, people to read people, go in, ask the right questions, right? Do that needs analysis, figure out how you can make that connection and build that relationship that way. So there's, I guess, the long and the short of it is, I think most of that is trainable, but you have to have the right person to start with too.
Procter & Gamble is known for, better part, century plus, known for doing an amazing job on training and innovation, marketing, branding, sales. I want you to specifically talk maybe about search and reapply, but more generally, Bill, can you share what are some of the tenets or some of the principles? What are the things that you learned there that you'd say, I don't even know if I tie it back to P&G now, but your early career in that amazing place. And I think I got at least 2 books by A.G. Lafley. What stands out to your time there that you still apply or think about today?
That's a great point. I think A.G. Lafley was a CEO when I was there, most of my tenure there, and he was a great leader. And I'm not surprised that you've read his books. I think he did a really nice job, at least for me as a young kind of person at that point. Right, he really set a great role model for leaders inside of our organization. And he talked about 3 kind of main things. Right, he was relentless in his focus on the customer. Right, which is a lot of what we talked about here of like knowing who you're going to talk to, who are you going after, whether it be that purchasing manager at a home builder or working for that GC, really know what they're about, right? Not only on a personal level, but on a business level. Like what makes them tick? What are they looking for? How can you bring value to them, help them be better at their job or bring a solution to their manager, right? So knowing your customer. The other thing that AG was big on was driving innovation. And that's a little bit like that search and reapply, which I'll talk about in a second. But he challenged all our leaders with inside Procter & Gamble to really think innovatively, right? And again, it doesn't mean that I'm going out and developing brand new product segments necessarily, right? Or a new product that the world's never heard of. But you can be innovative in your thinking in several different ways. And he drove that. That was constantly put up in front of us. Like, what are we doing? And innovation was rewarded internally. I remember something silly like Swiffer, right? When we launched Swiffer, I was working in that brand. I was working more on the commercial side, actually. And we're trying to figure out how can we make this application, work in the commercial. So I got with a couple of our product guys, and we literally created these Swiffer, almost like hair nets, if you will, that you put over those big industrial brooms.
Oh, yeah.
And we were going out and we were testing them at the grocery stores throughout Cincinnati, and we were just trying to learn and innovate around this project. And it was something that I thought was silly, but it ended up getting a lot of kudos inside the company just because it was like an innovative approach to something that, anyway. So AG was big on innovation.
Can I?
Yeah.
One thing in there, just curious, what would that rewarding, what might that look like? You said like kind of kudos. I'm assuming it could be, hey, in a meeting and something verbal. Was there any sort of, I don't know, is it a reward? Is it monetary? Is it
not non-monetary, but
okay.
Acknowledgement.
Okay.
Acknowledgement, right? Acknowledgement up the chain. So my manager, but my manager's manager saying, hey, sending me a note. Hey, I heard you did this. I let whoever else know. So it was just, as a young guy trying to drive up the train, right? Or drive up the chain rather. It was non-monetary, but still critically important to me at the time, right?
I just remember early in my career, I got one from Pat Byrne, who was a great leader at Pulte. He wrote me one note that probably had me put in another 50 hours above and beyond my 50 hours a week over the next like 90 days. Like that recognition drove me. But anyway, all right.
So the last point for AG really quick was just, and it was kind of relentless push towards continuous improvement, which is something that, again, I'd say all 3 of those things are really what we work with here in this company. And it's not just, I'm saying I brought it. I mean, Geoff had the same approach coming in, but I mean, the same mindset of focusing on those 3 things, which was kind of beat into me in a positive way at P&G, is doing it here. It's like, all right, how do we know our customer? How do we make sure that everything we're doing is for our customer and in service of our customer? how do we make sure we're being innovative? How do we find solutions? We don't have to come up with everything, right? Talk about search and reapply in a second. And the last thing is continuous improvement, right? How are we better tomorrow than we are today, right? There are no sacred cows. There are no sacred processes, right? If there's a way for us to be better, let's go figure that out. Let's go entertain that. Search and reapply real quick. So the group that I worked in, it was P&G, right? But the group I worked in really preached and had this concept, which is, there are innovative solutions to problems that we may be facing that are coming from outside of our group, maybe other parts of Procter & Gamble as a company, or maybe even outside of our company, outside of our industry even, right? So the concept is you don't have to come up with every solution in a greenfield kind of way, right? That there are a lot of really smart people that have solved a lot of really complex problems in other industries and other situations that you might be able to search that out, understand that, and reapply that into what you're doing today. And I think that's another part of something we've brought here to this company too, which is, we don't have to always have every answer. We don't have to be afraid to ask for help or to go out to talk to other people or search and reapply another solution, from somewhere else that might work for us. So,
well, I think that's a great bridge to what I wanted to ask you about. I'm going to say 2 words, and don't be humble, because I do think this is an innovative thing I have not heard of before. Hot sauce.
Hot sauce, yes. So hot sauce for us is, generally we think of hot sauce as that, that extra thing that you put on your food just to make it taste a little bit better, to bring a little extra flavor to the situation. And in our world, in our countertop fabrication world, hot sauce are those things that we can bring to a project, a countertop project, that might add a little bit more. Add a little more customer satisfaction, enhance the overall project to the customer, and also candidly give us an opportunity to maybe increase margin on that project as well. So for example, in our world, one of the big hot sauce items that we sell is something called a digital layout, digital view. And this is something that we do internally. We have a process where we take high resolution photos of slabs, and then we have the ability to lay those slabs out visually with a high-res photo in the actual countertop shape and form with the actual material, with the photo that we've used in the material. So the customer can actually see that countertop before we've actually even cut it. What purchasing that hot sauce digital layout will do will allow that customer to interact with that. So if they see that vein and it connects here and they want to see a different option there, we can go ahead and work with them on that, right? And they can have some input into what that looks like. Our guys are going to go through that process and make their own judgments as the experts they are to try to optimize that project. But if you have a customer that wants a little more interaction, a little more say, then we're going to allow them to purchase this option, this hot sauce option called digital layout, and then they can have that involvement in it. Some may say, well, why don't you just give that away to them? Well, there's additional cost for us in there, right? That time, the time that our folks are spending with them, the delays in the process that may go along with the customer interacting with it. But again, for some customers, that's an important thing that they want to do. And we have a few others. There's actually tens and hundreds almost of options you could add to a countertop. So,
can you talk about the chip minimizer?
Chip minimizer, yeah. So chip minimizer this is a concept that we coined hot sauce maybe, but it's something that a lot of more sophisticated guys in our industry do across the country. And for a lot of these guys, the chip minimizer is by far the number one seller. And the chip minimizer is takes the profile, the way that your sink. If you think about a sink and a countertop, it's typically a squarish edge that goes around the sink area. What that does is it creates a potential for, as you're bringing pots and pans or plates out of that sink, is that you're going to hit the side of that edge of that sink, cut out, and it's going to chip it. And so the chip minimizer puts a rounded edge on that. It's a very simple rounded edge. It's additional tooling that we need to run on the machine, but it does create a more rounded profile on that sink cutout. So you're going to eliminate that kind of more right angle edge. So you're going to eliminate, or I should say reduce or minimize, as the name would suggest, the amount of chips that sink cutout might have. So, but a great product. And I think what's important about hot sauce, Brad, is that this is not a hard sell, right? This is a informative sale that we have our folks do. And then the guys that are talking to the customers about it are typically not even our salespeople. It can be our salespeople, but a lot of times it's our measure tech, our scheduling folks, our customer service folks, that are just letting customers know that these options exist. You don't want them? Fantastic. Your project's going to be great. You'd like to talk about them? You'd like to learn more about them? Great. We can tell you more about them. That kind of sell.
Yeah, I viewed it as a point of purchase sale. It's something additional. It's something extra, something you might like. You are not forced to take the macadamia nut cookie there at 7-Eleven when you're, buying a Gatorade, but it's just sitting there and it's $1 and you can just add it on. But I can imagine though, we're not going to go in the specifics here, but imagine though in aggregate, making this available is more profitable for you, correct?
Well, there's a benefit to us financially to do it, but there's also a meaningful benefit to the customers. I mean, there's a sense out there that this idea of reverse buyer's remorse, right? Which is, obviously everyone knows what buyer's remorse is. I bought this, I shouldn't have. I bought that cheeseburger, that woman had a steak, that looks delicious, I wish I would have had that, right? This is the opposite of that, which is I just spent this money, this time, this effort on this project. It came out, I really like it. I go over to Bradley Hartman's house and he's got the chip minimizer. And I didn't even know the chip minimizer exists. That looks awesome. Man, I wish I would have got the chip minimizer. So again, customer's boss, right? We're here to offer them these options, let them know these other things exist, and to really, again, elevate their overall satisfaction with the project. So,
well, that idea, when you said it before about the reverse buyer's remorse, it set me back physically. And I'm like, that's a big idea. And I haven't thought too much about it since you said it, but somewhere in there's a cousin of fear of missing out. And I think knowing the products and the photos you have online, and how much people love and use an amazing kitchen that can change their lives. Imagine going through this entire process and getting done and being like, this is amazing. And then Nancy comes over from 3 houses down and says, this looks so good. Like, I'm so glad I recommended you use, TCF. I didn't even know that was an option. Now, all of a sudden, just like that, can reframe their entire experience,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
I don't think there's enough people talking about this, or I have not thought nearly enough about just that reverse buyer's remorse and making it available. It's not a hard sell,
no,
but I want you in control and know this is possible. Totally up to you.
Exactly right. Just it's informative, right? Mm-hmm. And then again, like we said, we've got an app that we developed that our folks are really just giving an iPad to the homeowner while they're in the house, measuring the house or measuring the countertops, letting them kind of self-select as they go through the process. So consultative selling or informative selling maybe is a better way of saying it. So
maybe can you talk a little bit about whether it's the decision-making process, or I'm just fascinated with all you guys are doing and how much you've grown, your own time management. Talk to me about when you see these new opportunities, what you guys are doing on labeling. That seems so obvious and so easy and so practical. It has me asking, why didn't someone else do this before? It wasn't done before. You guys did it. How do you make that decision as an owner with someone with a family? You got kids, you got a growing organization, you're in Arizona, you guys are here, on when to pursue new opportunities. What is that filter? Because I struggle with that. It all sounds amazing. It all sounds great. And I will often start to say yes until my team kicks me in the shins and it's like, idiot, we don't have you do not have the bandwidth for this. Maybe just take us through, maybe give us an example or two of some of the new technologies or other kind of businesses you've started to help the industry, and kind of how you work through that on what you're capable of helping.
I'm not surprised that you feel that way, because I know you and I are similar in how we're wired. And Geoff, my business partner, very similar as well. And it's a challenge. Candidly, it is, because we see opportunities and in our natural state, we want to go attack them because there's an opportunity there and it seems so exciting and romantic and fantastic to go after it. I will say this, having Geoff as a partner, and Geoff is, you said this in the introduction, is a lifelong friend. We went to high school together, lived together after college, and know each other very well. He's a brother to me in many ways. And so we are good foils for each other in those situations to say, hey, awesome. I love what you're talking about. Love this opportunity. But how does it measure up, right? If we rank it in context, how does it measure up versus these other two, right? Give me the size of the opportunity, give me the time involved, and give me what is the best case scenario output on it, and how likely is that? And so we'll go through that exercise. What does it look like? What kind of effort is required to get it done? And what is that long-term possibility that it could bring to us? And we've had, I would say we never argue, but we've had discussions where we've been on different sides of things and had to kind of marinate through it, talk through it, work through it to eventually get to it. But some great things come out of it. To your point, I mean, we, with some partners, started a company called Fifth Gear Technologies. And the concept behind Fifth Gear was, hey, we're fabricators. We know this industry as well as anybody. And we have common problems like many industries do. We have common problems across the industry, or challenges maybe is a better word. And so how can we develop products or processes or something that address problems for us, help ourselves internally, but man, those also help other people as well. So that was kind of the thought behind starting this Fifth Gear company. It was really a technology company developing software solutions for our industry. And to your point, I mean, maybe the search and reapply model, one of our biggest products right now is a product called Speed Label. It's a product that works with your ERP and will allow fabricators, when we go cut a project, right? We'll put the slab on a machine to cut it into shapes and sizes. And that project may have 8 to 10 different pieces, shapes and sizes, similar shapes and sizes, different shapes and sizes, but that color may be similar to other colors we have in the shop at the time. So you can see that when we put those into production after they're cut, man, it's hard to keep track of them, right? What job is this for? What size should it be? When is it being delivered? Who quality controlled it? Any of that stuff. So with the label is very, very simple. And to your point, a very obvious solution, right? So the label does is it takes the image of that piece, puts it on there, and it puts detail at the bottom. Maybe it's the customer's name, maybe it's the address, customizable, product color, whatever it is. And what we encourage our folks, what we use it for is it is a quality control tool. So as it goes through our shop, our guys know exactly what this piece is supposed to look like and all the details associated with it, so they can check it through the process. And then it's also our final quality control. So if you go through our shop like you and I did, you'll see labels on finished pieces that have circles on them and that are initialed because all of our guys have checked them through the process. So when it goes out and it has that speed label on it, we know it's gone through a quality process and it's going to be right. And if it's not right, we know who back in the shop or in the process didn't identify it right. The other part of it is all these pieces are numbered. And so when our folks are loading up the A-frames to go install that day, they know that Hartman job had 12 pieces to it. I better have 12 pieces with a sticker on it that says Hartman on that job. And so it does reduce, I don't want to say it eliminates because we're human, but it dramatically reduces that situation where I went out to a job site and I had 11 of the 12 pieces. And now we've got to make another trip back. The customer's not happy because we didn't complete the job. There's a just associated cost with it and all the rest of those things that go along with it. So it helps streamline that as well.
No bonus points for getting 11 out of 12 there.
No.
Nope.
It'd be an A in any kind of course you're in, but right. Not in our world. Not in our world.
I don't know if there's a there on this next question, but I'm curious. Maybe can you take us a little bit deeper in, are there specific meetings with a specific structure that you and Geoff and maybe other key leaders of your team have on any sort of consistent basis? Because you guys got a lot going on. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, I don't know, for myself, maybe selfishly, but I feel I don't have with our team, and in my case, it's with my wife who handles finance and legal. We kind of get together as we need to. We look over finances monthly, but there's not like a true like structured meeting. How do you and Geoff and the rest of your team as leaders get together? We say, hey, we need to step out of the being in the business to be on the business, and anything that has worked well for you guys?
It's a great question. I love that concept of you need to work on the business, not necessarily always in the business, right? And finding that time to work on the business. And we do that with we do that in some regularity where we go out off site and we'll go look, typically at least once a year we'll have our annual planning meeting. We'll do 3-4 days out of the office. We'll bring our key managers into the meeting and we'll set our goals for the next year financially, any kind of capital investments. We'll just kind of go through that whole process. On a regular basis, we have our one-on-one meetings with all of our key reports. And then we have a daily meeting. We call it a buffer meeting. Our key managers are on it, but also our key staff are on it as well. We have adopted a process that we call synchronous flow. We don't call it that. It's called synchronous flow. It's rooted in Eli Goldratt's book, The Goal, right? Theory of Constraints. Are you familiar with it?
I'm kind of, yes, I'm stunned here. I don't mean to stop you from talking. I read in my MBA program, which, right, that's where that, wrote this paper shortly after and kind of changed my life in a small way. I hadn't lifted that book up for probably 8 years. And we had a guest on the show recently, Vern Harnish, Entrepreneurs Organization. and he was raving about it. And after I talked to him, he brought up like twice, and I'm like, I got to go back and read it. So I just reread that 2 months ago. But anyway, keep going. That's amazing.
So anyway, this concept of synchronous flow is built on that book, or that book is kind of, mandatory reading as part of that, but it's built on that theory of constraints, right? And so you can see, actually, I'm going to point to something that our listeners can't see, but we have a buffer zone system that is part of this synchronous flow process. And you remember in the book that Goldratt talks about buffers in the zone too. So just to simplify for folks here, the concept is that in your process, whatever that process is, there is a constraint. You have a constraint. There is in any chain a weak link in that chain. And the idea is that, if you don't know what that is, and you spend time strengthening other parts of the chain, in essence, the overall chain isn't any stronger because the weakest link in the chain, the constraint, is still weak, right? So it's the idea of, hey, I got to find that constraint, right? I need to exploit or improve that constraint, right? And then that will, in essence, strengthen the overall thing. That constraint is also the thing that guides your flow, right? You can't be as fast as the constraint can work as fast as the whole system can work. So making other parts of the system super fast without addressing the constraint doesn't help you, right? Anyway, long and the short of it. But for us, right, that turns into this buffer process, right? And this buffer meeting is part of that. And what we do, in essence, in that meeting is we'll go through every phase of the company, every phase that a job goes through in the company, and we'll report any jobs in those zones that might be having any problems or issues or anything like that. So what it allows us to do is get ahead of problems, take noise out of the system before they become an issue, before they affect the constraint. We address those issues before it in any way delays what's going to happen with the constraint, and thus shuts the whole system down. So that morning meeting is about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll go through the buffer part of it, but we'll also talk about a couple of important things. We'll talk the current financial data, how we're doing. We do something called $T tracking, which is also part of this process, which is a financial metric for the company, and we report that daily. So we know, based on our goal for the month, through every day or through the previous day, how we're doing on that month. And that's reported out to that buffer in that buffer meeting. So folks understand where we are.
Is that a revenue figure, Bill?
So a throughput is a measure of revenue minus your material cost. Okay. In our world. So, it doesn't account for labor. But anyway, so that's the metric. So yes, it's a true financial, it's some, gross margin, if you will. It's a gross margin number. Okay. So we report that out every day. It's an opportunity to report any issues. So anything that's going on, every department's got an opportunity to chime in. Any challenges they're facing that day, anything they need help with, anything going on, to address in that meeting. And then we end it with something that I really like, which is tell me something good. And that to me is, it's just something that we do that's a little bit different. A lot of these meetings, a lot of this stuff is about issues, right? We're talking about jobs that are, having trouble or something that didn't go right or something like that. And don't talk about how great things are, right? How good things are, how happy customers are. And for a lot of folks, listen, I think it's important that, everybody that comes to work every day wants to do a good job. I believe this in my heart, right? They may be demotivated for some reason. They may be having a bad day specifically, but in general, they want to know they're doing a good job. And it's hard sometimes, right? You as managers, as leaders, it's our responsibility to make sure that people understand what right looks like, so that when they go home and they talk to their spouse and they say, hey, Bradley, did you do a good job at work today, or did you have a good day at work? I mean, if I don't know what right looks like in my job, right, or I don't know that we've been delighting customers left and right, I'm going to go home and be like, I don't know, I did what I do every day, and it's good. And that's super, that can, over a period of time, be very demotivating, right? And that's why jobs become, kind of a grind, right? I mean, they're going to be a grind anyway, but they become just monotonous, right? And so to me, having people understand what right looks like, but also celebrating those victories, those positive things, is really important. And so, a lot of times tell me something good is, hey, this customer called us yesterday and sent us these pictures because she was so happy with how our countertop turned out. Or, hey, look at this amazing commercial job that we just finished, right? Look at the great things that all of your hard work turned into, right? You didn't know it because you were doing a piece of the overall puzzle, but here's what the end of the puzzle looks like. And it's spectacular. It's great. And so tell me something good is one of my favorite things that we do on a daily basis, because it's just, I'm an optimist, right? I kind of go through life with the glass is maybe overfilling and not just half full, right. But it's just something that I want people to feel good about when that meeting. So
I think you answered part of this, and this is a good segue to this last section here. And again, you've been extremely generous with your time and I think your insights and your storytelling here. I want to ask, which I know is on the minds of a lot of folks who listen, is when you think about the big box stores, when you think about the big builders, when you think about working with the big commercial guys, hey man, if you want to do that, that's great. You can't make money at it. And when I hear that, I don't have direct exposure to all three of those, but I do for working for one of them. I said, oh no, you can. However, you got to be really proactive. You have to be thoughtful, and just what you just described there in your whole system. If you are doing a lot of rework, no, at best, you're doing that for cash flow, and it's probably going to hurt your reputation because, dude, you got to perform at a high level at that scale. Maybe as we kind of wrap up here, Bill, what sort of, insights or context can you share? Because I think you're probably one of the few, if the only person I know, you and Geoff and the company you run, who serves all three of those segments a lot and do so well and enjoy doing it and have grown your business because of it. What might you share?
Well, I think it's a great point, Bradley, and we hear it from a lot of people too in our industry, guys who say, oh, you guys work on box store business, or you guys work at the big builders, you can't make any money in that business, And listen, I think there's truth to it in a sense, right? Because working with those customers, right, those larger customers and large general contractors as well, there's an expectation from them of a level of process, of a level of reliability, a level of quality that is maybe above what most people would want to do or set up to do on a daily basis. So I guess the first thing for us, and I think Geoff would echo this, is one of the things that's made us successful is that we're willing to mold the company's processes around the demands or needs maybe of our key customers. Back to that idea of customer as boss, right? We're not going to change Pulte, Lennar, D.R. Horton. We're not going to change the large GCs. We're not going to change Home Depot and they're successful. Why would they change for us? They're not going to do that. So what can we do internally, right, from a process standpoint to make it easier to work with them, right? And it's that to me, that mindset shift that allows people to make that change, right? Don't try to fit them into what you do. You need to change what you do to fit in with them, right? And if you're willing to do that, it's going to make you a better company overall because you're going to be more disciplined. You're going to create more processes that are going to help you be more consistent. You're going to be much more mindful of your costs, whether that be in remakes or reworks, whether that be your yield on material. You're going to need to become a better business person because you're going to be more alert and aware of these things because that's how you do it. But I think foundationally, it's about willingness to adapt the business's approach to what the customer needs as opposed to trying to fit it the other way.
Yeah. Well, just hearing you say that reminds me of this idea that, hey, we all get to choose who our customers are. And there's nothing worse than choosing to go work with this company and then getting there and just complaining about the whole time and then saying you don't make any money and then turn around and do it some more. But I think seeing what you guys have done is you've chosen this path. You have deep empathy for and flexibility and also a tenaciousness that is kind of buried beneath guy who's fun to hang out with, you guys are smart asses and, you guys are fun to be around. I think beneath that, there's this tenacity that, we are going to deliver value first. We're going to go above and beyond. We're going to blow them away to the point that they're like, why are we working with anybody else? And they're going to come back and they're going to probably have a big order and big capabilities for you guys that might stretch you even more, but that's what we're signing up for, right?
Continuous improvement, right? It's what we talked about earlier. That underlies almost everything we do, right? And that, to your point, tenacity, that desire, that drive to continue to get better. It doesn't mean, it's important to note though. I think one thing is it's not continuous improvement isn't continuous change, right? Those are two different things to me. Because what I think a lot of people fall into, right, is this idea that I've got to keep changing, right? I get some feedback and now I got to change a process. And then I got some other feedback and I got to change another process. And then you're in in essence, a cycle of continuous change where nobody really understands your process because you continue to change them, and no one can master that process as you continue to change them. So it's different, right? Continuous improvement is not continuous change, right? So they're two different things to me. But to continuous improvement is that thirst, that drive to say, are we doing it the best we can? And are there things for us to tweak, to look at, to evaluate, to maybe improve it in a certain way, shape, or form? So,
cool. Bill, you've been extremely generous with your time 13 years ago and kind of throughout an entire relationship. And I would also say Geoff Gran in absentia has also been very generous.
He's here in spirit.
He is. I felt him.
He's here in spirit.
I felt him. Anything else? I know you, and again, I really appreciate this. This is the minority. We love all our guests. We are grateful for all our guests coming on the show and trading their time and sharing their insights. Not all of them are making notes, and you've come really prepared. Is there anything here in the notes in front of you that you want to close out on this episode?
Yeah, Brad, that's a great question. I think, the thing for me, and we talked a little bit about back to Procter & Gamble GAs, and just back to how Geoff and I think about leadership, right? And so for us, you've heard of the 5 E's of leadership: envision, engage, empower, enable, and execute. Those are, we don't talk about those on a daily basis, but I think we try to live those in how we approach this business and lead the organization. And I think for me, one of the really important things that Geoff and I try to work on, that I would encourage all folks in any leadership role to work on, is I think, envisioning is pretty clear, right? It's pretty clear that I got to set the vision, right? You set the vision for your organization. We try to do that for our organization as well. Where are we going? What does the future look like? You hear a lot about empowering people and giving them the space to make decisions and do that. And we really try to push that in the company too. And then the last part is execute. That's the last of the 5 E's. And a lot of people fall down in execution, right? That's typically a lot of times the hardest part of it. And that's something that everyone needs to work on. And we do too. We need to get better executing every day, back to continuous improvement. But one thing that I think we try to do a good job of is what I would call, it's called engaging or enrolling. And to me, that is, how do you make sure that the organization, that the people that you work with, that you're leading, are engaged and enrolled in that vision, right? Because that's the only way you're going to get them to really deliver their best work, to kind of show up every day wanting to do their best work, is if they're engaged and enrolled in what the company's trying to do, right? It's a little bit back to that point of making sure they understand what right looks like and making sure that they know what success in their job looks like on a daily basis. And that to me is just, as I think about it and I think about what we've learned over the years is sometimes that's a step that people just, inherently you skip over. Like, all right, I'm going to set this vision. I'm going to tell everyone they can make their decisions and we're going to go execute it. It's like, great, but are they on board? Do they know why it's important? Do they see how that vision fits into the broader performance of the company? Are they understanding of how their role, right, fits into the ability of the company to deliver on that vision? So to me, it's just a kind of last thought that I'd share with you on how we think about leadership over here. So,
well, I appreciate that. I'm a big believer in words matter, and we can choose them very specifically. And I think to your point about, are you enrolled? It's one thing to say, are they bought in? Like, what does that really mean? But when that word enroll, we've all enrolled in something, even if it was grade school, there's a process, right? And you are showing up.
You're committed, right?
You are committed,
yep.
right?
Yep.
And you're there every day. So that verb there, enroll, as it relates to the vision, is something that I will certainly think about more.
BH, one more last thing here. I could talk all day, as you could probably tell. And I said this up front, I've said it a couple of times in it, and I've heard it throughout your podcast and through other stuff you do. I loved your concept of you're owed nothing and deliver value first. I think it is, and I remember you telling the story about, I think you were up in Alaska when that kind of lightning bolt hit you with some magic sauce. I think it's important, and I'm glad you continue to use that mantra. I want to tell a quick story. Back when I first started, my first job out of college, I worked for the Gallo Winery in Chicago. I was actually working through a distributor there. And Stephanie Gallo, Ernest Gallo's granddaughter, started similar time than I did. She's Ernest Gallo's granddaughter, right? She's starting at the lowest level with me in the company. We're in supermarkets, liquor stores, building displays, doing everything we can do. I mean, she has no reason to do that, right? I mean, she's a Gallo. She's Ernest's granddaughter. She's going to be leading that company at some point in the future. But to the credit of that family and her credit fully, she felt like she was owed nothing. She worked as hard or harder than anyone else in that operation every day. And so she set a tone for everybody else. It just, I'm not owed anything. My name is could be Heuer, could be Hartman, right? I'm here every day to deliver value first, right? And she set the tone for everyone else, right? In the organization that we all worked with. We all admired the heck out of her. And now she's a very successful CMO at Gallo. That brand is expanding. They're doing amazing things. Anyway, I think it's when I hear you say that, I think about certain people in my history, and she's definitely one of them that had that mantra from the start. So
appreciate you sharing that, Bill. Appreciate everything. I know you're extremely busy, and I think I set poor expectations with you on how much time exactly I would monopolize today. I totally blew by that, but I know I was the benefactor. So for everything, thank you.
Thank you, BH. Appreciate it. Good to see you, my friend.
All right then, friend. How did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Bill Heuer, at least a little bit as much as I enjoyed speaking with him and spending time checking out their operations and talking shop with them. If you did enjoy this and you have just a little bit of time to do us a small favor, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast player. Those mean more to us than you know as we strive to grow our reach, to bring our construction community together to work more efficiently, productively, and profitably. That's what we're trying to do here. You can help. Appreciate you listening. I'm done. You are owed nothing.
You are owed nothing.
Deliver value first.
Deliver value first.
Make it a great week.